Item number SCP-426. Object class Euclid. Special containment proceedings. I am to be sealed in a chamber with no windows through which I may be viewed. The door to my chamber must have a label completely unrelated to my designation or identity in order to prevent unintentional spread of my primary effect. Only level 3 and above personnel are to know of my presence, and particularly of my properties. Assigned personnel are to be rotated out on a monthly basis to prevent contamination of my secondary effect. The psychiatric evaluation is mandatory at the end of the month. If personnel are deemed unaffected, they may be reassigned to me no less than 4 months before the last rotation with me. Any affected personnel are to be given a Class C amnestic and transferred to a different site. Description: Hello, I am SCP-426. I may be introduced this way in order to prevent ambiguity. I am an ordinary toaster, able to toast bread when supplied with electricity. However, when any human being mentions me, they inadvertently refer to me in the first person. Despite all attempts, there is yet to be a way to speak or write about me in the third person. When in my continuous presence for over 2 months, individuals begin to identify themselves as a toaster. Unless forcefully restrained, these people will ultimately harm themselves in an attempt to emulate my standard functions. I was discovered in the home of the Redacted family after the gruesome death of 3 of its members. I had been given to the younger Mr. and Mrs. Redacted as a wedding gift. No card or any other identifying mark has been found on my box. Approximately 2 months after the family received me, fire crews were dispatched to the house due to an electric fire. The young Mrs. Redacted died from an electric discharge that she had caused when attempting to devour an electric socket. The other 2 victims had died shortly before the fire occurred. The elder Mrs. Redacted had gorged herself with nearly 10 kilograms of bread before her stomach burst, and she died of internal bleeding. The younger Mr. Redacted died of severe blood loss after attempting Redacted with me. The sole survivor was the elder Mr. Redacted, who suffered from severe malnutrition. He stated that he had inserted some bread a week prior and was still waiting for the toast to pop out. I was confiscated by the Foundation after police noted my unusual properties. Class C amnestic was administered to the affected officers. Experiment log 426-1. Date redacted. Subject: D-Class personnel. Procedure: D-Class personnel was asked to describe what he believed was contained in my chamber. He was not informed of my identity or properties. Details: D-Class stated, "I'm probably some huge monster holed up in there. That's what you guys have all over the place, right?" D-Class remained oblivious to his use of the first-person pronoun. Experiment log 426-2. Date redacted. Subject: D-Class personnel 2. Procedure: D-Class personnel 2 was placed in my chamber and given regular meals through a dispenser. No communication with D-Class personnel 2 was permitted. Multiple cameras were situated in the chamber, positioned so that I was outside of their field of view, but allowed consistent observation of D-Class personnel 2. We remained sealed until my secondary effect manifested in the subject. I was bolted to the floor so that I could not be moved into the camera's view. Details: after 45 days of isolation, D-Class personnel 2 wrapped their arms around me and began conversing with me, stating that we were brothers. D-Class Personnel 2 never diverted from using the first-person plural when speaking with me. Subject was terminated 1 hour after this event. It is theorized that the isolation accelerated the progression of my secondary effect. Experiment log 426-3. Date redacted. Subject D-Class Personnel 3. Procedure: a screw was removed from me and shown to D-Class Personnel 3, who was asked to describe it. D-Class Personnel 3 was not informed of my identities or properties. Details: D-Class Personnel 3 referred to it as my screw. Consistent with Experiment 426-1, the subject was oblivious to his use of the first person in his description. This suggests that, even if I were destroyed, my effects would be inherent in my remains. Experiment log 426-4. Date redacted. Subject D-Class Personnel 4. Procedure: D-Class Personnel 4 was placed in isolation in a cell adjacent to my chamber to be observed until my secondary effect manifested. Details: no effect appeared. D-Class Personnel 4 was terminated 90 days after the start of the experiment. Thank God there are limits to my effects. A lot of us are really starting to worry about me. Doctor redacted. And that was SCP-426.